and on to yet another expert voice. ET Now's consulting editor, Mr. Swaminathan Aiyar, is joining us to share his perspective on the budget. Mr. Aiyar, so good to have you. Give us your sense on how you have seen the budget, and do you think the government has maintained fiscal prudence by sticking to its fiscal guidance?
No, I would rate this budget at, say, 5.5 out of 10. I will not give it a high score. The reason I will not give it a high score is that there are lots and lots of small, tinkering little changes. But in terms of the big picture, I would have said that this is the midpoint of the electoral cycle, right? And normally you have a government does not act tough in the first year or two. And by the last year, again, it has to give freebies to try and win the elections. So this was a time for taking strong action in some things that may be unpopular. But this particular budget is unremarkable. It has not struck out in any great new ways. There are lots of things for every little sector. But I would have said that in terms of the political economy, the time was ripe for striking some things that are politically difficult. The one which stands out is this irrational urea fertilizer subsidy, because with all our subsidies, our price is less than half the world price. So urea is getting smuggled out to Bangladesh, smuggled to Nepal, being diverted for use as a basic chemical instead of being a fertilizer. So I would have thought that, this is an appropriate time to go for some of the tougher reforms, of which I think the fertilizer subsidy would have been the easiest one to tackle. And I'm somewhat disappointed that they've not done so. They have looked upon this as a budget largely of continuity. And there is a case for saying, if the economy has already been doing so well, repeatedly quarter after quarter, the outcome of GDP is surprising on the upside. So if things are going so well, why come with some major things which will spoil the image and functioning right now? So that would be one possible way, but that is not the approach that the finance minister has stressed out. The finance minister said, I'm doing more for this, more for this, more for this, more for this, and more for this. And as a result, there are a large number of small changes here and there. But if you look at the big picture, I would say it's an unremarkable budget. And I would have been happy, given the overall circumstances, if it had been a little more adventurous, especially in politically difficult areas, like, for instance, the fertilizer subsidy. There are others, of course.
Mr. Aiyar, one of the announcements which actually spooked the market was STT. Now, this increase in STT, do you think it was much needed?
Look, there was a report by some committee saying that if you look into what's happened in the actual functioning of futures and options, a number of retail investors have jumped in. And the reason they have done so is that futures and options is in effect a highly leveraged bet on the underlying equities or the underlying bonds. Now, this is a very difficult treachery ground. Even the people who know the markets well have been known to slip. But if a retailer comes in here into some area which in effect results in a huge leverage both up and down, then it is possible for them to lose a lot of money. There have even been some rumors or some news that there is actually ways to trap the retail investor which are being taken advantage of by the big players. So I ask myself, why have they increased this particular thing? One answer could be they'll get a little more revenue, not much, but yes, they'll get a little more revenue. And it could be defended on the ground of, you are trying to tell the retail investor, Baba, why don't you avoid this sector? There are risks in it. My personal take would be, a fool and his money are soon parted. If retailers are making the very foolish act of coming into such a leveraged ways, I would say let them lose their money. Let the word go round that this is treachery. This is treacherous quicksand in which retail investors should not go. Just leave it to the professionals. So I would not have bothered to do it in the terms of trying to protect the retail investor. But if you want to get a little more revenue out of this, you can get it. Beyond that, I think the other thing would be, if you want to have a world-class global market. If you want to say I have all the different futures, options, and other kinds of markets that developed countries have, if you want to move towards that, then you should not be having an STT at all. We are right now not moving in the direction of abolishing it, certainly. It brings good revenue. But I would say that as of now, if you think that the futures and options is a trap into which retail investors are falling, I would simply say the best way of keeping retailers out of this, let them lose their money. Let the grapevine go around saying, Baba, this is a dangerous, highly volatile place, leave it to the professionals. And I don't think it's necessary from that point of view for the government to have increased the rates.
Okay, very valid points there. But Mr. Aiyar, lastly, talk to us about what this budget holds for individual taxpayers. Not much announcements on that front. If you could throw some light there.
No, I would simply say that, in some sense, a budget should be judged perhaps not only by what it does, but what it does not do. And there is a case for saying when the economy is already doing quite well, when you have a situation where retail investors are pouring 30,000 crores a month into our SIPs, when this healthy kind of development is taking place, then there's a case for saying, well, at the margin, we will have a little tinkering here and there. Overall, the situation is more or less okay. So let us say this is a boat which is steering on a good course. We don't need to do lots more. That much course correction is not required. So let us have more of the same. So I think that is the best way, perhaps, to see Nirmala Sitharaman's mind. That the emphasis right now is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We have been doing very well. Quarter after quarter, our GDP turns out to be higher than was earlier estimated. So at this particular point, let the ship keep going on roughly the same course. There are a large number of small proposals for a large number of different sectors, so let that be. But as far as the big picture is concerned, something very difficult like abolishing the fertilizer subsidy in phases, that I think is an opportunity which has been missed. I think we should have started on that particular big difficult job this year.
All right, Mr. Aiyar, thank you so much for your time.